Welcome back to Disturbed Reality. Today we're going back to this channel's roots. We'll be talking about the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG for short, and more precisely in regards to a video that was released depicting the brutal murder of a rival cartel member, to be more precise, a Los Viagras member. Now this isn't the first time where CJNG and Los Viagras have crossed paths on my channel. Of course, the El Siri video was the execution of a CJNG member by the Los Viagras. I covered that video, and in fact even the Ghost Rider video has some crossover, because although Ghost Rider was part of the United Cartel and Los Viagras are quite closely aligned in their war with CJNG. In fact, when you look at the cartel world in the last 4 or 5 years, when it comes to graphic content online, a lot of that content is coming from the CJNG and Los Viagras. Those guys, at the moment, are really upping the ante in terms of pure brutality. Especially in regards to CJNG, they are involved in numerous wars with numerous cartels, including the Los Viagras, the Sinaloa Cartel, the United Cartels, La Familia Michoacán, what's left of the Los Zetas, and also Cartel del Noreste, which I believe is a spin-off of the Los Zetas cartel. Essentially, CJNG now are basically doing what the Los Zetas did back in the day. It seems to be you're either with us or against us. There doesn't seem to be an in-between, there's no truces. That's the way the CJNG operates, and, you know, as a result in the last few years, it has definitely been successful. They've grown exponentially in the last few years. In fact, right now they're viewed as the second biggest cartel in Mexico, but arguably the most dangerous. Now, in terms of long term, is that sort of strategy going to make them come out on top? I'm not sure about that. You know, you can only fight so many battles, and eventually recruitment will become a lot harder. In fact, from what I've read in the last couple of years, is that the CJNG now are in so many battles and they're suffering so many casualties that they're now basically forcing new recruits, so kidnapping them and basically forcing them to fight in their wars. And in the long run, I'm not really convinced that, you know, that's a good strategy. But what do I know? Time will tell, I guess. As it stands right now though, El Mencho has been very successful in growing his CJNG cartel. In fact, at this point in time, he's so notorious that he's the most wanted man in Mexico, and I believe that he's got a $10 million bounty on his head. That's one hell of an incentive to find this guy, but I would hazard a guess and say the powers that be don't really want to find this guy. You know, at the end of the day, there's a lot of hands in the pot, a lot of guys skimming off the top in law enforcement, in politics, in the army. Ultimately, it doesn't serve the best interest of a lot of people in power to capture a guy like El Mencho. And to be honest, even if they do capture him, it doesn't necessarily mean that Mexico will be better off. You know, when other cartels have had their leader captured, usually that creates a big internal struggle will commence, which means more violence, and sometimes these cartels at this point will then split and fragment and basically create new cartels, therefore creating more warring factions. I mean, look at the CJNG, for example. Look at where they came from. They came from the Milenio Cartel. In 2009, the leader of the Milenio Cartel was captured, and a power struggle, a power vacuum at the top of that cartel ensued, and basically the Milenio Cartel then split into two different factions: the La Resistencia, who would be later known as the United Cartels, and the Los Matas Zetas, who would later be known as the CJNG. But in short, when that split did happen, there was far more violence than there was when it was just the Milenio Cartel. So, you know, disbanding these cartels can actually result in more violence and more bloodshed. But yeah, apologies for the backstory. I know you guys really are here for the gory details, but I find the whole Mexican cartel, the Narcos world, extremely fascinating, and I only know like 1% of it. It's so in-depth, it's so complicated, but it's a really interesting topic that, in my opinion, hasn't really been touched on by mainstream media the way it should be. You know, it's one of the biggest stories in the world right now, arguably, especially when you look at the numbers in terms of murder and kidnap. The numbers are staggering in the last 10 years. It's wartime numbers, but for whatever reason, this topic doesn't really get covered by mainstream media, and yeah, I find it extremely fascinating, but at the same time, extremely sad. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into the video. But before I do, I wanted to shout out a couple of you guys who actually helped me with this video in regards to a bit of additional information and also translations. So shout out to Tony and also Sorola Direz. Thank you guys for the help on this one. But anyway, in regards to this video, I'm actually going to begin with the end of the video. During the last seconds of the just over 3-minute video, it actually shows the victim before he was executed in his captured state, and you hear him talking, and basically what he's saying is, in essence, that the Los Viagras are shit, and that he sees that now, and that the CJNG are the very best. Now, apart from showing the victim in his captured state, I can't really show too much of this video because it really is that graphic, to be honest, so I will show you what I can, but it might not be much. But anyway, the video starts with the victim lying on his back, completely clothless, and the victim has a chain on his neck. You know how you would see a dog being chained up? That's basically what he's got around his neck, so in short, he's not going anywhere. There are 2 CJNG perpetrators in the video. Both guys are wearing just regular cartel gear, faces are covered, they seem to be wearing some sort of combat vests, and one dude is armed with what looks like an AK, and the other guy is armed with what appears to be a hunting knife of some description. And before the dude with the knife starts cutting, he says the following: "I send my regards to all of you who keep acting out, especially you Gordo and Chava. Look at how I got your people. Look at them. Is this what you all want? You do know him, yes? You better step up your game." During the perpetrator's speech, you can hear the victim kind of begging and pleading for his life, but obviously that's to no avail. At this point, the dude with the knife starts cutting the victim's left leg off at the knee, and this wasn't a hack job like you see in many cartel videos. This dude was a straight professional, if I can use those words. He took the dude's leg off in mere seconds, and as the leg comes off, you can see a big spurt of blood, almost like you see in horror movies. He then hits the victim with his own leg. And you know, watching the perpetrator do his work, you know, it's obvious that he's done this before. There's no way in hell that this was the first time he's done this. He was way too efficient. It was almost like watching a butcher. Once the first leg has been removed, the perpetrator said the following: "I thought you were supposed to be tough. See what happens? Let's cut the other one." The victim replied, "No more, no more." The perpetrator then responded, "What do you mean no, you son of a bitch? This one's for you, Chava, just so you can see how I have your people. Look at how I have them." At this point, the perpetrator then cuts off a right leg, once again in super efficient fashion, and then the victim is then beaten with his own leg once again. After the legs have been removed, the perpetrator says, "Keep sending people like him to Nueva Italia, so you can see what I do with them. Just so you can see how I catch your people off guard, motherfuckers." Now, I'm presuming Nueva Italia is the restaurant where they caught this dude. Now, this video took place in La Huacana, in the municipality of Michoacán. I actually tried to find this restaurant in the area on Google, but I had no luck, I couldn't find it. But anyway, after the victim's legs have been cut off, they then move to cutting off his arms. And by the way, he's fully conscious throughout all of this. The perpetrator begins by cutting the victim's left arm off at the shoulder, and as he's cutting, he tells the victim, "You have a lot of meat, don't you?" The left arm is then removed, and then they go to his right arm and do the same process. They cut it off at the shoulder, and again, even at this point, the victim is still conscious, and the video ends as they finish removing the right arm. And even at the end of the execution segment, after the victim's lower legs have been removed and his arms have been removed, it appears that the victim is still conscious even at this stage. So I'm assuming that they just pumped this guy full of drugs, basically just so he felt every second of it, and he's definitely felt every second of it. Honestly, it's a really horrible video, and the fact that these guys did this in less than like 3 minutes is absolutely insane. You know, these guys had obviously done this before. There was no way that this was their first day at the rodeo. They had to have done this before, and yeah, all in all, it's just a very brutal video. Obviously, when it comes to the cartel side of things and gore, many people reference Funky Town, the Guerrero flaying, sponsored by Adidas, even Ghost Rider. People kind of put those videos as the worst, but to me this video ranks right amongst them. I would say it's in the top 5 worst I've seen when it comes to cartel videos, and you know, I always try to discourage you guys from watching these videos. It's just not worth watching, especially if you're not experienced when it comes to this sort of content. Just don't do it. Let your curiosity get the better of you. Just listen to my description, maybe read about it on Reddit, online. But yeah, just leave it at that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, if you can enjoy this sort of content. I wasn't actually going to do a video on this one, but I actually got a bit more information on this video. So once again, thank you to Tony and also Sarola. You guys provided some great information and you guys really made this video possible. So thank you very much. It's much appreciated. Honestly, it's humbling that, you know, you guys will actually help me with making this sort of content. It truly is. So thank you guys again. And if anybody out there wants me to cover any particular case, please feel free to put those cases in the comments. I will basically consider anything for the most part. So any suggestions, please feel free to share them in the comments. And, you know, once again, all of you in general, thank you for the support. We're nearly at 100,000 subscribers, which is absolutely insane. You know, it's still overwhelming, you know, I can't really believe it. But, yeah, you guys have made this possible. So thank you guys for making this a really enjoyable journey. It's been really interesting, so thank you guys very much. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed it. As always, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.